Welcome guys, let's take a look at the Singapore Grand Prix. It was a bit of a stinker, that race, wasn't it? Really hard work to watch through much of that race. Not an awful lot of action at all, but let's get straight to the start. And it was Franco Colapinto that made the big move, 3 places up. Bit of a dive bomb according to Alex Albon, who really wasn't happy with his teammate. I don't know if that was the cause of Alex losing 3 or 4 places down from where he was, down to P15, so a horrible one for Alex Albon. But Colapinto made up 3 places, and I thought it was actually a really good start from him. The big one, Lando Norris got off the line, kept his lead. Finally he led into the first lap, and then from there on he was an absolute charge. Sergio Perez made a good start, made up 3 places, got himself up into the top 10. Charles Leclerc made up a position up to P8. Gasly made up a position also. Yuki Tsunoda was a poor starter in that one, dropped 3 places, like Alex Albon dropped 4 places, and Carlos Sainz dropped 2 places down to P12, but a decent recovery job from Carlos Sainz in the end. Barring that, it was just a Lando Norris masterclass, isn't he, with a class of his own. Bar a couple of lockups, which was the big scare, wasn't he, where he nearly took off his front wing, got a little bit of damage on that. And then we're seeing Charles Leclerc holding back George Russell after Russell had pitted early, and closing in on Charles Leclerc. Was role reversal towards the end, and then Oscar Piastri pitted, and then he was on his charge, on his way back, wasn't he, past the 2 Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton and then George Russell, fairly comfortable from him from there. And then you'd thought he'd be homing in on Max Verstappen, especially when you look at the pace that Lando Norris had. He had about 16-17 seconds to make up, but didn't really close on Max Verstappen like you thought he would on them fresher tyres. So I don't know if there was something that they'd seen in terms of issues on the car that they just kind of just conserved him and made sure he just brought the car home, because that car had real pace like we've seen in the hands of Lando Norris and when Oscar had clear air. So interesting that, you know, that didn't happen at all. And then it was Charles Leclerc closing on George Russell in the end. Couldn't get past, but a really good recovery from him. And yeah, it was a win for Lando Norris. Max Verstappen, damage limitation, comes home in 2nd place. Lando Norris didn't take the fastest lap. That went to Daniel Ricciardo, potentially on his last race in Formula 1 this season. It looks like pretty much all the rumours are that the announcement will get in a couple of days' time. And then it was 3rd place, Oscar Piastri, probably the best he could have done after a poor qualifying session yesterday. Let's take a quick look at the 3 good and the 3 bad. Well, it was Lando Norris that's going first on that. He was a class of 1, wasn't he? What, up to a comfortable second and a half faster than Max Verstappen. He was 18 seconds ahead by lap sort of 20-21. So absolutely flying. He did bar the mistakes that he made, which were scary when you've got just walls around you. He was pretty much untouchable, wasn't he? Had the fastest lap for most of that race, bar obviously there's nothing you can do when a back marker or a guy right at the back pits and put some softs on to nick that. But other than that, they were just absolutely dominant. He was flying. The most disappointing thing here is that where it should have been a race where Max Verstappen struggled, he maxed everything he could and really brought home a good P2, did Max, which means Lando Norris didn't take out the big chunk in the championship that we thought, or I personally thought he would here this weekend, because this has been a weekend or a race where historically for the last couple of years now Red Bull have struggled but Max didn't. But Lando Norris, you can't fault him. He was absolutely magnificent this race. The second of the 3 good is Charles Leclerc, and I thought that was a horrible qualifying session to come down in P9, but to just miss out on P4 in the end was probably more than they can hope. They were looking at 6th, 7th, probably the best that they could do. But yeah, a P5 from Charles Leclerc. I think really, really good recovery. He was really annoyed and disappointed, and it was horrible that he was stuck behind Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg, the DRS train early doors, wasn't he? And that really compromised his race, because but for that, I think he could have been a comfortable 4th and potentially in the fight with Oscar Piastri, had he been able to get past Alonso and Hülkenberg earlier. Really good strategy to, go long. They undercut Nico Hülkenberg, and then he got the pass on Fernando Alonso, which was crucial. And a really good recovery from where they were, to be honest. They've not lost too much ground to McLaren, and they would have gained some points on the Red Bull given Sergio Perez struggled. So overall a decent recovery drive, but it was, it must be disappointing because this is the race weekend that they've come in where they should have won. But I think you've got to give credit where you've taken a hit, a really good recovery drive from Charles Leclerc in the end. In third, I'm going to go for Nico Hülkenberg of the three good, because he's just held on to P9. He was well out of position with a fantastic qualifying in P6, wasn't he? And didn't really expect him to hold on to that given the cars in and around him. But he held off Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc for pretty much the whole first stint, didn't he? It was a really good defensive drive. Went long. That meant he got undercut by Fernando Alonso, which is, I think, probably a bit naive in their strategy call, but when you look back, I think it was probably the right choice to give him enough time on the new rubber, or the what would be old rubber, which kept him ahead of Sergio Perez in the second stint, wasn't he? He was always Mr. Defensive the whole Grand Prix, and it really paid off. He's got a couple of points for the Haas team, a really good job from him. I've got to give a shout out to Franco Colapinto. P11, he was just 1.6 seconds of Sergio Perez. Now this kid is really putting in some stellar performances. This is not an easy track for any of the drivers here, and so to come home just outside the points, just off Sergio Perez, I think he can be really, really happy with himself in that Williams. Let's get to the three bad, and it's, Hülkenberg's teammate that's going to take the first of that, Kevin Magnussen. I think is he now a little bit on borrowed time? Should they really be giving Ollie Berman that seat? I did say so in the last race, and this weekend he's kind of showing that it was a poor qualifying session and a poor race. He made contact with the wall, got damaged, and then he got a DNF in the end. But yeah, really shocking race from him when you think his teammate is fighting and bringing home points. He was really sloppy and putting himself under pressure, really. And I think it's time now. Do Haas really, with 6 races to go, give Ollie that seat for the last 6 races? But let's see what they do. But yeah, a horrible race weekend from him. Second of the 3 bad, I'm going for Yuki Tsunoda, and he'll be most disappointed because he had a really good qualifying session. Started in P8, but he's dropped 4 places down to P12. Granted, that car isn't quick, but you think where a track where it's difficult to overtake, he could have potentially held on for a point. It wasn't to be. He was really unhappy with his team. The strategy call was probably what cost him, really. He was just in the middle of nowhere. He was just asking the team, what are we doing here? And yeah, the response was like, just wait and you'll see. Not the kind of what you want to hear, isn't it, when you're under pressure out there on the racetrack? But yeah, disappointing from Yuki Tsunoda. And the third of the 3 bad, I'm going for Lewis Hamilton. He started in 3rd place, looked promising, and then he was down to 6th. And I think most of this goes down to the strategy. It was horrible, wasn't it? He was the only guy in the top 10 on the softs, and it was clearly the wrong call. I think they banked on an early safety car. It didn't come. He probably took them tyres as long as he could into lap 16. Probably should have really taken him 4 or 5 more laps. We've seen some cars go 23, 24 laps on them softs, but he pitted way too early on them soft tyres, and it was a compromise from there. His then second strategy was just a long run on the hards, and by the time 10, 12 lap older tyres, he was trying to hold back people on fresher tyres. It just was always going to be difficult, and it proved so. He, being one of the early stoppers, unless there was a safety car, would have bailed the team out on that one, and they kind of banked a little bit too hard on that. I think, especially given he's the man in 3rd place on the podium. Were they hoping for a good start and to pass Max Verstappen and into 2nd place and see what they could do from there? Probably so, but still, with the, when you're on the weaker tyres, you're giving the guy behind the options later in the race to come and attack you. So I think we're just sort of seeing if that could work and get track position, but it obviously didn't. You thought they might have tried that with Russell, but obviously if they did that, they jumped the man in front with their own teammate Lewis Hamilton. So I could see probably the only reason why they tried to do that, but it clearly didn't work at all. And yeah, it was a difficult watch, that Singapore Grand Prix, but now we have a 4-week break for the next race weekend. We'll probably hear a little bit more about Daniel Ricciardo, so watch out on that video coming. Watch out for the driver ratings video to be coming shortly, so hope you enjoy that. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you next time.